The red dust of new terror swirled around Kim Jin-ho's boots as he stepped out of his battered hover truck. The twin suns blazed overhead, casting harsh shadows across the dying landscape of his ranch. Everything was falling apart, just like his life. His atmospheric processors wheezed and coughed, barely maintaining breathable air across his 1,000-acre spread. The alien soil rejected his Earth crops despite years of genetic modification and soil treatment. Yesterday, another creditor had sent a message threatening to seize his property within the week. Jin-ho had exactly 47 credits left to his name. The ranch had been his father's dream, carved out of hostile alien wilderness, with blood, sweat, and stubborn Korean determination. Now it was becoming Jin-ho's nightmare, but he couldn't give up. This was home, the only home humanity had on this forsaken rock at the edge of known space. His supply run to New Seoul, the planet's only major settlement, was supposed to be routine. Buy spare parts for the processors, maybe some synthetic fertilizer if he could afford it. The industrial district buzzed with activity as usual. Massive cargo haulers from distant worlds unloaded exotic materials, while alien merchants haggled with human traders in broken universal standard. Jin-ho was haggling with a Zentari parts dealer over a pressure valve when he heard it. A sound that shouldn't exist in any civilized place. The crack of a whip, followed by a child's cry. The Zentari's reptilian eyes flicked toward the sound nervously. Ignore it, human. Not your concern. But Jin-ho was already moving. The sound came from beneath the market, down a maintenance shaft that led to the old mining tunnels. He'd heard rumors about illegal operations down there, but the local authorities turned a blind eye as long as the bribes kept flowing. The tunnels reeked of chemical residue and desperation. Emergency lighting cast sickly yellow pools every few meters, leaving most of the passages in shadow. Jin-ho followed the sounds deeper underground, his heart pounding with each step. What he found in the main excavation chamber would haunt him forever. Dozens of human children, none older than 10, crawled through narrow mining shafts extracting rare minerals with their bare hands. Their clothes were rags, their bodies covered in cuts and chemical burns. Insectoid overseers, their chitinous shells gleaming in the harsh work lights, drove the children forward with electric prods. "Move faster, meat!" One of the creatures clicked in its alien language, striking a boy who couldn't be more than 8. The quota must be met. Jin-ho's vision turned red. These weren't just any children. They were human children, probably orphans from the outer colonies, sold into slavery by pirates or corrupt officials. His own people, abandoned and forgotten. Among them, working in a shaft barely wide enough for her tiny frame, was a girl with the darkest eyes Jin-ho had ever seen. She couldn't have been older than 7, her black hair matted with dust and grime. Her small hands were scarred from handling raw ore, and she moved with the mechanical precision of someone who had given up hope. An overseer noticed Jin-ho watching and skittered over on 6 legs. "You want to buy, human? Fresh stock from the Outer Rim. Very cheap, very obedient." The words hit Jin-ho like a physical blow. Buy, these children were being sold like livestock. "How much for the girl?" he heard himself ask, pointing to the small figure in the shaft. "Ah, that one is special. Very small, very useful for tight spaces. 200 credits. 200 credits. More than he had. More than his ranch was worth." But as the girl looked up at him with those hollow, hopeless eyes, Jin-ho knew he couldn't walk away. He thought of his father, who had died building this ranch with dreams of a better future for humanity among the stars. He thought of his mother, who had always said that a person's worth wasn't measured in credits but in the lives they touched. "I'll take her," Jin-ho said. The negotiation was brutal. Jin-ho traded everything: his hover truck, his father's antique plasma rifle, even his emergency medical kit. When it still wasn't enough, he mortgaged the ranch itself, signing papers that would leave him homeless in 30 days if he couldn't pay. The overseer processed the transaction with cold efficiency. "Congratulations, human. She is now your property." The two. Word property made Jin-ho sick. As the creature unlocked the girl's shackles, she didn't even look up. She simply waited for new orders from a new master, her spirit completely broken. Jin-ho knelt down to her level. "What's your name, little one?" She whispered so quietly he almost missed it. "Lee Minji." Well, Minji, my name is Kim Jinho, and you're coming home with me. For the first time she looked directly at him. In those dark eyes he saw a flicker of something he thought was gone forever. Hope. As he carried her toward his borrowed transport, Jinho whispered the promise that would change both their lives forever. You're safe now, you're coming home. Behind them, the tunnels echoed with the cries of children still trapped in darkness. But at least one would see the light again. The first night at the ranch, Minji hid under the kitchen table like a wounded animal. Jinho found her there at dawn, clutching a piece of stale bread she'd saved from dinner. Her eyes darted around the room, searching for threats that existed only in her memories. "Good morning, little star," Jinho said softly, using the nickname his own father had called him. He placed a bowl of warm rice porridge on the floor near her hiding spot, then sat down across the room. "Take your time. No one's going to hurt you here." Minji didn't touch the food for hours. She'd learned that kindness was often followed by cruelty, that full bellies made beatings hurt less, but hunger finally won, and she ate like someone who expected the bowl to be snatched away at any moment. Days blended into weeks with painful slowness. Minji followed Jinho around the ranch like a shadow, never speaking, never trusting. When he worked on the atmospheric processes, she watched from a safe distance. When he tended his struggling crops in the greenhouse domes, she pressed herself against the transparent walls, observing everything. The ranch itself was a testament to human stubbornness. Massive atmospheric generators hummed day and night, converting the thin alien air into something breathable. Solar collectors tracked the twin suns across the purple sky, powering the life support systems that kept this small pocket of Earth alive on a hostile world. Everything was held together with spare parts, determination, and prayer. One morning, Jinho discovered one of his primary atmospheric sensors had failed during the night. The device was buried deep inside a narrow maintenance shaft accessible only by someone with very small hands. He stared at the cramped space, knowing he couldn't fit, knowing that without this sensor the entire ranch could lose atmospheric pressure. Minji appeared beside him, studying the problem with those sharp, dark eyes. Without a word, she crawled into the shaft. Her tiny fingers worked with surprising skill, reconnecting wires and adjusting calibrations with the precision of someone much older. When she emerged 20 minutes later, the sensor was working perfectly. Jinho stared at her in amazement. "How? Did you know how to do that?" She shrugged, still not speaking, but there was a hint of pride in her posture. In the mining tunnels, children who couldn't repair equipment didn't survive long. She'd learned by watching, by necessity, by pure survival instinct. From that day forward, Minji became Jinho's silent partner. She could crawl through spaces he couldn't reach, fix delicate circuits with steady hands that had stopped shaking from fear. The ranch began running smoother than it had in years. Broken systems that Jinho had written off as hopeless suddenly came back to life under her careful attention. But it was in the greenhouse where Minji truly found her calling. The hybrid earth vegetables that had struggled for months under Jinho's care began to flourish under her touch. She seemed to understand what each plant needed, rotating them to catch the perfect amount of artificial sunlight, adjusting nutrient levels with an instinct that amazed him. The tomatoes grew fat and red. The Korean peppers blazed with perfect heat. Even the stubborn rice paddies adapted for alien soil began producing grain that tasted like home. Neighbors from other struggling farms started visiting, asking Jinho what miracle fertilizer he was using. He never told them the truth. The miracle wasn't chemicals or technology. It was a 7-year-old girl who whispered to plants in a language only they could understand. 3 months after rescuing Minji, Jinho made a discovery that changed everything. He was working late on a malfunctioning water recycler when he heard singing. Soft, wordless melodies drifted from the greenhouse, mixing with the hum of machinery and the whisper of processed air. He found Minji sitting among the tomato vines, singing to the plants in a voice like silver bells. When she saw him, the music stopped abruptly, and she tensed as if expecting punishment. "That was beautiful," Jinho said gently. "Please don't stop." But she had already retreated into silence, and no amount of coaxing could bring the music back that night. The breakthrough came on an evening when New Terra's twin moons hung like purple jewels in the darkening sky. Jinho and Minji sat on the ranch house porch, sharing a bowl of rice and watching the atmospheric processors paint lazy trails of vapor. Across the horizon, a pack of native creatures, six-legged things like metallic wolves, prowled the perimeter of the ranch. They were drawn by the scent of growing things, of life flourishing in the dead alien landscape. Usually they kept their distance from the defensive barriers, but tonight they seemed bolder, hungrier. One of the creatures approached the fence, its silver hide gleaming in the moonlight. Minji tensed, pressing closer to Jinho's side. In the mining tunnels, strange creatures had often meant danger, pain, death. "It's okay," Jinho murmured, wrapping an arm around her tiny shoulders. "The barriers will hold. Nothing can hurt you here." The creature studied them for a long moment, then trotted away into the night. As silence returned to the ranch, Minji's voice broke the quiet like morning sunlight through clouds. "Papa Jinho," she whispered, the words barely audible. "Will you really keep me?" The question hit him like a physical blow. In her voice, he heard every abandoned child in the galaxy, every orphan wondering if they were worth loving, every broken heart hoping for home. Tears streamed down his weathered face as he pulled her close, feeling her tiny heartbeat against his chest. "Forever and always, little star. You're my daughter now. Nothing in this universe will ever take you away from me." Under the alien sky, surrounded by the gentle hum of human technology keeping death at bay, a rancher and his adopted daughter held each other tight. They had found something more precious than any mineral in the galaxy. They had found family. The illness struck Minji on a Tuesday morning like lightning from a clear sky. She was tending the tomato plants in Greenhouse 3 when she suddenly collapsed, her small body convulsing as purple veins spread across her skin like poisonous rivers. Jinho found her moments later, unconscious and burning with fever. He'd seen this before during his early years on New Terra. Xerion fever, the colonists called it. A deadly alien pathogen that lived in the planet's soil, waiting to claim human lives. It killed within 6 hours. No exceptions, no survivors. "No. Oh no," Jinho whispered, scooping Minji into his arms. Her skin felt like molten metal against his chest as he ran toward his emergency medical kit. His hands shook as he injected her with every antiviral serum he had, knowing it was useless. Xerion fever laughed at human medicine. The nearest medical station was 40 kilometers away in New Seoul. Jinho's old hover truck screamed across the wasteland at maximum speed, kicking up clouds of red dust, while Minji's breathing grew shallower with each passing minute. The purple veins had spread to her face now, creating intricate patterns that looked almost beautiful, if you didn't know they meant death. Dr. Cho Sunhee, the station's chief medic, took one look at Minji and shook her head. "I'm sorry, Jinho. There's nothing we can do. Make her comfortable. She has maybe 2 hours left." But Jinho refused to accept defeat. He held his daughter's burning hand while machines monitored her failing vital signs. Her fever spiked to levels that should have cooked her brain. Her heart rate became erratic, then dangerously slow. The purple veins spread across her entire body like a roadmap of death. Then something impossible happened. At hour 4, when Minji should have been dead, her fever broke. The purple veins began to fade, retreating like a tide pulling back from shore. Her breathing steadied, her heart rate normalized, and she opened those dark eyes that had haunted Jinho's dreams since the mining tunnels. "Papa," she whispered, her voice hoarse but alive. Dr. Cho stared at the medical readouts in disbelief. "This is impossible. No human has ever survived Xerion fever. Her immune system didn't just fight it off, it adapted to it. She's now completely immune." Word of Minji's miraculous recovery spread through New Seoul like wildfire. Within hours, reports were transmitted to medical facilities across the sector. Scientists, doctors, and researchers from dozens of worlds received the same incredible message. A human child had done the impossible. 3 days later, Dr. Park Hyunwoo arrived at the ranch in a sleek corporate shuttle that looked out of place among the dust and machinery. He was a tall, thin man with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, but his presence filled Jinho with dread. Corporate scientists meant trouble, especially when they came asking about children. "Mr. Kim," Dr. Park said as he stepped out of his shuttle, his expensive suit already gathering red dust. "I'm here about your daughter's remarkable recovery." They sat in Jinho's modest kitchen while Minji played outside with a mechanical toy he'd built for her from spare atmospheric processor parts. Through the window they could see her laughing as the little robot dog performed tricks in the alien sunlight. "Her genetic code is extraordinary," Dr. Park explained, studying data on his tablet. "Most humans require extensive genetic modification just to survive on worlds like New Terra. But Minji's DNA is naturally adaptable. She's evolving in real time, developing immunities and resistances that could take our species thousands of years to achieve naturally." Jinho's blood ran cold. "What are you saying?" "She's the key to humanity's future among the stars. With her genetic template, we could create treatments that would allow humans to colonize worlds previously thought uninhabitable. Toxic atmospheres, deadly pathogens, extreme radiation, none of it would matter. She could save millions of lives." The words sounded noble, but Jinho heard the hunger beneath them. "You want to take her away?" Dr. Park's expression grew uncomfortable. "The research would require extensive testing. Blood samples, tissue cultures, genetic mapping. She would be well cared for, I assure you." "She's not a laboratory specimen," Jinho growled. "She's my daughter. Mr. Kim, please understand. The potential benefits to humanity are enormous. This could change everything." Their conversation was interrupted by the roar of engines overhead. 5 sleek combat shuttles descended from the purple sky, their black hulls bristling with weapons. They landed in perfect formation around the ranch house, kicking up choking clouds of dust. Armed mercenaries poured out of the shuttles, their faces hidden behind tactical masks, their weapons trained on the house. Their leader, a massive man, in military-grade armor, strode forward with the confidence of someone who had never been told no. "Dr. Park," the mercenary commander said, his voice electronically distorted. "We're here for the girl." Jinho stepped outside, positioning himself between the mercenaries and his home. "Get off my land." The commander laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "This isn't your choice anymore, rancher. The girl is corporate property, valuable research, material. The Galactic Development Consortium has legal claim to any asset of strategic importance to human expansion." "She's not property," Jinho snarled. "She's a child. She's a genetic anomaly, worth more than this entire planet," the commander replied. "Stand aside or we'll move you aside." Jinho disappeared into his house for a moment, then emerged carrying his father's old plasma rifle. The weapon was ancient but well maintained, its power cell humming with deadly energy. Behind him, Minji peered through the doorway, her dark eyes wide with fear. "Papa," she whispered. "Stay inside, little star," Jinho said softly, never taking his eyes off the mercenaries. Then, louder, his voice carrying across the wasteland like thunder. "You want my daughter? You'll have to go through me first." The mercenaries raised their weapons, but their commander held up a hand. He studied Jinho with professional interest, noting the steady hands, the combat stance, the cold fury in his eyes. "You're outnumbered." 50 to 1, old man. Jinho smiled grimly, his finger finding the rifle's trigger. "Then it's a fair fight." Around them, the wind howled across the alien landscape, carrying the scent of growing things and the promise of violence. In the distance, New Terra's twin suns began to set, painting the sky the color of blood. The emergency beacon's wail echoed across Haven Valley as Jinho's desperate message spread through the settlement's communication network. "They're coming. For Minji. I need help." Within minutes, the response was overwhelming. Lee Dongyuk, the grizzled mine foreman, was the first to arrive at the ranch in his massive excavation vehicle. The machine's drill arms gleamed in the setting sun as he parked it between the mercenaries and the house. "Nobody touches the kid," Dongyuk growled, climbing down from his cab with a plasma cutter in his hands. "Not on my watch." Soon, the entire valley was mobilizing. Park Jiwon, who ran the water processing plant, arrived with her team carrying improvised weapons made from industrial tools. The Shin brothers, who operated the settlement's only mechanic shop, roared up in their armored work vehicles, their cargo beds loaded with spare parts that could be turned into explosives. Young Kang Sumin, barely 18 and fresh from Earth, showed up with a hunting rifle older than she was. "My family didn't come to the Outer Rim to watch corporations steal children," she declared, her voice shaking but determined. The mercenary. Commander watched this ragtag assembly with amusement. 200 farmers and miners against trained soldiers? This is almost too easy. But he underestimated what desperation could accomplish. These weren't just random colonists, they were neighbors who had survived together on a world that tried to kill them every day. They knew every canyon, every toxic gas vent, every unstable rock formation in a 100-kilometer radius. Old Yang Xiokmin, the settlement's unofficial military advisor and a veteran of the colony wars, took charge of the defense. "They have better weapons, but we have better knowledge. This is our home and we're going to use every advantage it gives us." The battle began at dawn when the mercenaries launched their first assault. Their combat shuttles screamed overhead, strafing the settlement with plasma fire, while ground troops advanced in perfect formation. It should have been a massacre. Instead, it became a masterclass in guerrilla warfare. The colonists had spent the night preparing the battlefield. Hidden charges, rigged from mining explosives, turned the main road into a crater field. Mirrors salvaged from atmospheric processors created blinding light traps that disoriented the advancing soldiers. Even the settlement's maintenance robots were reprogrammed to create chaos, skittering between the mercenaries' legs and sparking electrical shorts in their equipment. When the first wave of attackers reached the settlement's outskirts, they found themselves facing not helpless civilians, but a coordinated defense that used every scrap of available technology. Atmospheric processors became makeshift weapons, shooting superheated steam at approaching soldiers. Industrial excavators turned into mobile fortresses, their drill arms spinning deadly barriers of metal. The turning point came when Minji herself entered the fight. A damaged mining facility had begun leaking toxic gases that drove both sides back from a crucial defensive position. The chemicals would kill any human who breathed them within minutes, but Minji wasn't any human anymore. "I can do this, Papa," she said, pulling on a makeshift mask that wouldn't protect her anyway. "They need me." Before Jinho could stop her, she was running toward the gas cloud, her small figure disappearing into the yellow-green mist that meant death to everyone else. Inside the toxic zone, she could see what the adults couldn't. Coordinate movements they couldn't make, reach equipment they couldn't touch. Her voice crackled over the settlement's communication system, directing defenders to flanking positions, warning them of incoming attacks, guiding them through areas that should have been impassable. She had become the settlement's eyes and ears in places where no one else could survive. The mercenaries' advanced sensors were useless in the toxic environment. Their satellite communications were jammed by the settlement's mining equipment. Their perfect military formations crumbled in terrain that shifted and changed with each explosion, each gas leak, each desperate improvisation by the colonists. Commander Seo Ji-hoon, leading a squad of defenders through the eastern canyons, found himself fighting alongside people he'd never met, but who trusted him with their lives. A corporate dropship tried to land reinforcements, but Ji-hoon's team had rigged the landing zone with magnetic mines that turned the aircraft into expensive scrap metal. By midday, the mercenaries were in full retreat, their casualties mounted. As they tried to withdraw through killing fields, the colonists knew by heart. What had started as a simple extraction mission had become a nightmare of booby traps, ambushes, and guerrilla tactics that their corporate training hadn't prepared them for. The final blow came when the settlement's power grid, which the mercenaries had dismissed as primitive, overloaded their electronic warfare systems. Every piece of advanced equipment they carried suddenly became useless metal. Their weapons wouldn't fire, their communications went dead, their armor's power systems failed. As the last corporate shuttle limped away into the purple sky, trailing smoke and carrying wounded soldiers, the colonists of Haven Valley stood among the wreckage of their homes. Buildings were damaged, equipment was destroyed, and several people were injured. But they were alive, they were free, and they had proven something important. They had proven that humanity's greatest strength wasn't technology or firepower. It was the willingness to stand together when everything seemed lost, to fight for each other even when the odds were impossible, to protect what mattered most, regardless of the cost. Minji emerged from the toxic gas cloud, her face streaked with dust but her eyes bright with pride. She had saved her family, her community, her home, and in doing so, She had discovered something about herself that would change the galaxy forever. As the settlement began the long work of rebuilding, no one celebrated victory. They simply did what humans always did after surviving another day. On the frontier, they helped each other heal. They shared what little they had, and they prepared for whatever challenge tomorrow might bring. In the distance, New Terra's twin suns set behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of hope and defiance. The holographic news broadcasts reached every corner of the galaxy within hours, from the gleaming towers of Earth's capital cities to the mining stations orbiting distant gas giants. Humanity watched in awe as the story of Haven Valley unfolded on their screens. Corporate forces defeated by farmers and miners, read the headlines on 10,000 worlds. But the real story wasn't about the battle. It was about a little girl who could survive in places that would kill anyone else, and the man who loved her enough to risk everything. Within weeks, medical researchers from across human space were requesting samples of Minji's blood, hair, and genetic material. But this time they came with respect, not weapons. Dr. Park Hyunwoo, who had witnessed the corporate attack firsthand, became Minji's fierce protector in the scientific community. "She's not a test subject," he told every researcher who contacted him. "She's a partner. Any research must benefit her and her community first." The breakthrough came 2 years later when Minji, now 9 years old and taller but still small for her age, volunteered to help develop treatments for Kepler syndrome, a deadly condition that affected children on high-radiation worlds. Her unique immune system didn't just resist disease, it actively created new antibodies that could be synthesized and shared. The first successful treatment saved 300 children on the mining colony of Titan's Edge. The second prevented an outbreak that would have killed thousands on the agricultural world of New Kyoto. By the time Minji turned 12, her genetic template had saved more lives than any medicine in human history. But success came with its own challenges. Corporate headhunters still circled like vultures, offering fortunes for just a few vials of her blood. Government officials wanted to declare her a strategic human resource and place her under military protection. Even well-meaning scientists sometimes forgot she was a child, not a walking medical miracle. Through it all, Jinho remained her anchor. Now recognized as one of the galaxy's most successful terraforming specialists, he could have moved to any world, lived in any luxury. Instead, he stayed on New Terra, expanding his ranch and teaching Minji everything he knew about coaxing life from hostile soil. "Papa, why don't we leave?" Minji asked one evening as they watched cargo ships land at the spaceport that now sprawled across what used to be empty wasteland. "We could go anywhere. Live on Earth, see the oceans you told me about." Jinho smiled, his weathered hands still steady despite his 63 years. "This is our home, little star. We built something here together, something worth protecting." Haven Valley had indeed transformed beyond recognition. The settlement that once housed 200 struggling colonists now sheltered over 50,000 people. Gleaming medical facilities rose beside traditional Korean-style buildings. Atmospheric processors hummed alongside vertical farms that fed half the sector. The toxic wasteland had become a garden world, proof that humanity could thrive anywhere, if they had the will to try. But the most important change was invisible to casual observers. In the schools, children of dozens of different human colonies learned together. In the hospitals, doctors treated patients regardless of their ability to pay. In the research facilities, scientists worked not for profit, but for the simple goal of making life better for everyone. The memorial ceremony took place on a perfect spring morning, New Terra's twin suns painting the sky in shades of gold and purple. Thousands of people gathered in the central plaza, now renamed Kim Jinho Square, in honor of the man who had started it all. Dr. Lee Minji, now 25 and one of the galaxy's most respected xenobiologists, stood before the crowd in her simple, white coat. She looked remarkably like the scared little girl Jinho had rescued 16 years earlier, but her eyes now sparkled with confidence and purpose. "My father taught me many things," she said, her voice carrying clearly across the plaza. "He taught me that home isn't a place, it's the people who love you. He taught me that strength isn't about fighting, it's about protecting those who can't protect themselves. Most importantly, he taught me that every life has value, no matter how small or forgotten it might seem." The memorial itself was a work of art, a crystalline structure that captured and reflected New Terra's unique light, but it was the inscription that moved people to tears, carved in both Korean and universal standard. One father's love changed. The fate of humanity. Kim Jin-ho. He saw a child where others saw opportunity. As the ceremony ended and the crowd began to disperse, Minji helped her adoptive father down the steps of the memorial. At 78, Jin-ho moved more slowly than before, but his mind remained sharp and his heart unchanged. "Are you proud of what we built, Papa?" Minji asked, gesturing toward the thriving city that stretched to the horizon. Jin-ho squeezed her arm gently. "I'm proud of who you became, daughter. The city is just buildings. You are the real miracle." In the distance, a new group of refugees was arriving at the spaceport, families fleeing war and poverty in search of a better life. Minji watched them with the same protective instinct Jin-ho had shown her all those years ago. "There are more children in need," she said quietly. "There always are," Jin-ho replied, "but now there are more people willing to help them too." As New Terra's suns set behind the mountains, painting the sky in familiar shades of home, father and daughter walked back toward their ranch at the edge of the city. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new children to save, new worlds to heal. But tonight they were simply a family, sharing the quiet satisfaction of a life well lived. The galaxy had learned something precious from their story. In a universe full of corporate greed, military might, and technological wonders, the most powerful force remained unchanged. It was love. Simple, stubborn, transformative love that saw potential where others saw problems, that chose hope over fear, that proved again and again that humanity's greatest strength lay not in their weapons or their wisdom, but in their willingness to sacrifice everything for a stranger's child. And in the research labs, medical stations, and colony ships spreading across the stars, Minji's gift continued to save lives, each cure a testament to the power of one man's decision to choose compassion over convenience, love over logic, hope over despair.